So today's goal for the workshops is to lay the groundwork for collaboration and realise the implementation of Marine MCS. It's not about trying to develop the standard. It's not trying to figure out how we should be creative about this. The challenge here is that what we're seeing globally is the electrification of the fleet is happening at a more rapid pace than it has in the past. What we thought was going to be a pause during the COVID pandemic seemed to actually give people a little bit of time to sit and think their processes, operations, and how to solve the challenge of decarbonisation. So MCS has been presented as perhaps, and with respect to Jeremy when he talks about high power, but in the marine market where we talk about lower power charging, this certainly seems to be a good fit for a lot of these types of vessels that have in the coastal and harbour traffic range in different locations. And I mean, what I've aimed to do with these vessels that we see on the screen is to sort of highlight the fact that it's not just ferries or it's not just tugs. There's different solutions coming online in terms of what's going on globally. And indeed, what's now going to happen and what we are seeing happen is contracts for new types of vessels. So you can see on here, besides the E-Wolf, which my company is very proud to be involved with the team at Crowley, but also just above the E-Wolf is the spoiling vessels from companies like Artemis Technologies in Northern Ireland and Candela in Sweden. And in the lower right, this American company, Regent, that's now about to build its first full-size sea glider using a ground and wind effect. And what's common about both of these solutions is they're using a different form of a non-displacement type of form, but very at 100% electrical. And these require their own infrastructural supports. So what Eric has asked me to do is to pose the big question. And if we move to the next slide, please, Erica. My question for you, as we move into these subgroups, what's stopping you? As we have these different subgroups that Jeremy and Erica would moderate, we know that there are obstacles. We know some of them are internal, some of them external, but really start focusing on what it is that's stopping us and what can you give this task force and who can, and feel free to join to help get over these obstacles. So with that, Erica, I think like also Galen suggested, as we're running late, I really want to hear these conversations and didn't want to spend too much time on my own voice.
Thanks so much, Palamia. Yeah, that's great questions. And we have lots of questions teed up for all of you here. So we are going to do an exercise now. Oh, is this a video you wanted me to show, Palamia?
No, you're stuck with the corporate advertising, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay. Well, so thank you so much, Palamia. And we'll move on now to the first part of our breakout sessions, which we wanted to have a series of Mentimeter questions for everyone who's in person and also joining us remotely. The first question, hopefully will be loading here. Is that open? You just hit present.
Should be in.
It's taking a second. Oh, you know what? I think I know what's going on. I need to also be logged in.
Oh.
Sharing from my screen.
Oh.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we can share from over here, Erica.
Okay.
Everybody should see the questions up on the screen now. Is that right? And then if everybody just goes to menti.com and then types in this code 25404962, that will get you to our Menti survey.
And we're talking
Jeremy, we
across
don't have
offices and within offices, I think is really awesome. So kind of my appraisal is we're doing be done.
Those of us online can't see anything.
Yep. Let me share my screen again. All right, everybody should see that now. All right, so if you go to menti.com, you can use code 2540-4962 to enter in your responses. So the first one is government grant funding and incentives. Are they currently a significant part of your company's marine electrification activities? The options are yes, U.S. federal, yes, U.S. state and local, and yes, non-U.S. based, or no. If you don't know how to answer this question, feel free to leave it blank. Yes. Actually, I think it is a multiple choice. Now that I remember, I think we did set it up. Oh, it doesn't let you select more than one. Okay.
At least we don't have the risk of no and yes. Same answer.
If anyone is having difficulty getting into the Menti, please say something in the chat box and one of our colleagues will help support you.
What's the URL?
The URL is menti, MENTI.com. Okay, so it looks like the majority of responses so far have indicated yes for U.S. state and local funding is an important part. Whereas collectively, yeah, funding, it seems it's overall very significant, and only no has been selected 7 times. So that's a really good indication of the need for policy and regulations. The next question is, what type of vessel and infrastructure have you received government funding and incentives for? This is an open-ended question. Feel free to enter multiple times if it's allowable, or just include multiple things that you have into one response.
Who's going to answer tug? Come on, Carl.
Come on.
Hey. Locomotives. Huh?
So boats with a space, harbor tugs with the use. We got like a British person responding here, and tugboats with no space. So
Yeah, there's a lot of great different things in here. It's fascinating to see this. Jeremy, any particular feedback on this so far from your side?
Yeah, it's great to see not just watercraft, actually locomotives is very interesting, but as well to see batteries, BESS mentioned. So obviously we're very interested to see less of a grid impact by these large vessels getting charged. So to have batteries and BESS to allow for a smaller grid connection is great to see.
Fantastic. Well, we've gotten 26 responses. I think that's enough. We should probably move on to the next question. Will the new U.S. administration impact marine electrification at your company? And we have multiple options here. My company will continue with existing plans. My company will likely defer investments in electrification. My company is in a wait and see mode, and I don't know. And for those of you who are not impacted at all, perhaps just skip this one. Okay, looks like we have the majority selecting my company will continue with existing plans, or my company is in a wait and see mode. So it looks like very few have actually made a deferment at this point. The next question is, in your opinion, what is preventing electrification of marine? So this is another open-ended question. Feel free to put in your responses. Right.
Oh, no. Erika?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to the click.
Oh, shoot.
It would be the worst.
Microsoft to save the day. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So there's 45 responses. So a lot of people have opinions on this one.
Tons of money out there.
Funding, cost, and standard seem to pop up the most frequently if we had to pick three. But there's also quite a range of other things, right? Grid issues, power at the dock, cost of infrastructure, access to power seems to be coming up a lot. Yeah, high capex investment, unclear requirements. There's just a lot of concerns popping up here. Jeremy, did you want to add any other context?
Yeah, I was mentioned before those last ones came up. For a while, it was a lot about the grid, and so yeah, it's interesting to see these. Very similar to what was happening in the automotive space 10, 15 years ago. Everybody was afraid that as soon as everybody connects their car to the grid's going to collapse. And we're seeing the same things happening here, the same potential threats or thoughts that will happen. But yeah, that's why we're talking. I was happy to see the responses earlier about batteries and trying to come up with ways that don't have as large of an impact on the grid for those peaks, really, when the vessels need to charge. So hopefully we will be able to address those and they won't become reality.
All right. We'll move on to the next question, which is, what could the maritime industry do to speed up electrification? Again, another open-ended question. All right, so we've gotten 43 responses, with the 3 largest being incentive standards and standardization, as the things that the maritime industry could do to speed up electrification. We also see quite a bit around collaboration, common charging tech, regulation, also something called demand regulation, pilot projects. Yeah, like public-private partnerships, all ports committing to this. Any other things that you've noticed, Jeremy?
No, I think you covered everything.
Okay. So this is an open-ended question. So we have an idea of the subgroups we would like to introduce within the task force, but we want to also collect your insights. So what as the industry do you think we should be covering to get into the nitty-gritty detail and the technical detail of this standard for the megawatt charging system? What issues do you think we should spend a lot of time thinking about and working on, particularly from a technical perspective? So if you have a thought, please feel free to put it into this comment box. Oh, wow. Okay. Cable management. Environmental equity. Interesting. There's a lot of subgroups popping up here. Yeah, that's great suggestions. Autonomous charging. Interesting.
Wireless charging, not part of the topic for this particular charging.
So yeah, the megawatt charging system is not a wireless system. So maybe Jeremy, you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, the connector itself that we're talking about with the MCS connector is not wireless, but the important elements are, as it's mentioned here, communications protocol and really the back end, making sure that that all works the same. And there are opportunities to potentially develop a different type of connector. So it could be contact plate or it could be wireless, as long as really the back end remains the same.
That will be the XMCS, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Any other comments on this, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see, for example, ammonia. We are charging. We're talking about electrification, so that's not something that we would look into. But yeah, if we look into a lot of the other elements here, they're definitely the things that we thought about. So when we talk about these breakout rooms, you should find a breakout room that fits to all of the elements that you've asked for here.
On arcs with ammonia.
All right, so our last question is, of the topics we've prepared for today, what do you think we should prioritize? So we have standards, technical specifications, regulations, use cases, safety, electrical, policy, and operators/business. And the way to do this one, it's a little bit complex. You have to drag it from the bottom of the list to wherever you want it to go. So you could kind of do a rank order, is the process for that. Oops, so sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, so you'll go on that page, you'll drop down a little bit and you'll see there's an opportunity for you to drag and drop.
Getting collaboration. Partnership with the unions really benefit.
So that would be
That'd
outside of, yeah, well, that would be outside of our focus for the Marine Task Force.
Respecting all use cases.
Okay. Great. Well, it looks like we have a pretty clear. Oh, maybe not. I thought it was clear. Okay, assuming I don't see anything change, obviously standards, then followed by technical specifications, safety, electrical, and operator/business seem to be popping up as the top four. So this is great information. What we're going to take is, this information you've shared with us, and we're going to take this back into our first task force meetings. So we really appreciate this input. At this point, we wanted to move on to the actual breakout rooms. We have a little bit of things we have to do here, but before we do the breakouts, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Jeremy, who is going to give us some instructions, and then we will take a short break to get set up.
Yeah, so as Erica mentioned, thanks a lot for those questions. And we had already developed various different breakout rooms to a lot of these different topics. We're lucky enough that the four of those really did show up there. And so, yeah, we will be taking a break in a minute to assign everybody to the various different rooms. But we do have these 6 different subgroups that we've already defined: operators, use cases, safety, and electrical, looking more at the, let's say, the vessel side of the technical specifications. And then we have connection and communication, so looking more at the shore side and the connection to the vessel. Then regulation, government, and policy, and financial and business. And then we will have an in-person attendees group as well. I think now that we actually have 2 separate rooms here, we could potentially have 2 separate topics if we wanted to in person here. But yeah, we will be posting the links to those Teams meetings in the chat. And everybody will have an opportunity to then click on that. And so that the link to the Teams, as well as what that Teams meeting will be focusing on, will then be in the chat. Yeah, we'll have an opportunity then to work together for 30 minutes, answering the various different questions that we've prepared to those topics. And the leader of each of those breakout rooms, which is mentioned here, will then come back and report out from each of those rooms what were the biggest developments happening in those rooms. If we move to the next slide, so for everybody who hasn't used Miro board before, here's just a really quick explanation of what you're going to see and how to use it. So top right corner is what you'll see when you click on the Miro link, which is in the, will also be provided. So we've created these different boxes, which are the different questions that we plan on going through. And then within each of those questions, we have little sticky notes to allow you to provide some feedback about that question. And if you want to have any additional annotations, we have stickers and emojis, we have shapes and lines, frames. You can add comments to each of those stickers as well. And just a few tips on how to use Miro in case you haven't used before. So doing a right click and dragging will move you around the screen, and doing a left click and dragging will actually select different items there. And then use the menu on the left-hand side, as I mentioned, to add items. And there will be a link at the bottom of each of the Miro boards to get us back into the main Teams meeting after the 30 minutes that we're in these breakout sessions. So
yeah. So just for the folks that are joining in person, we're going to stay in this room downstairs, and we'll be doing a separate process that does not involve stickies for those that are joining in person. And we will be coming back right at 3 o'clock so that we can all have time to do the final, sharing of the comments and feedback, and then also the conclusion. But for right now, we need about 5 minutes to get everybody in the rooms. As Jeremy mentioned, they will be in the chat box for you to join the different rooms topics, depending on your area of expertise and interest. And we will be coming back at 3 o'clock. So the facilitators, please be sure to manage that accordingly. And with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn, and we'll see you in the virtual rooms or here in the space. Thank you. The people here are going to be, so we have all these people joining online. They'll be, the people here will not be joining online. Yeah. All right. So for the folks that are facilitating, Bonnie can show you a different room setup. So you can log in on the computer. So this is actually the Wi-Fi information if you don't already have it. I don't. So it's a hidden network. And so you'll have to go click on the hidden thing, type in California, and then put in the network password. Okay. And then the rest of the facilitators are already upstairs.
Pick your chair. We're gonna need to take these.
We just need the one chair probably for Eileen. Yeah, just Eileen will be down here, and then I think the other ones can just.
Fine. I'm gonna be like a few. No, you. Are we putting those together?
They do. Yeah, please. It's my daughter's birthday. Oh, yeah, I can birthday. So yeah, all right. Congratulations. John. Are you local? Seattle. Okay, great. Where are you located? Here. Okay, cool. Find out some interesting things to chat. That'd be great. Yeah. And they'll. I'll go to your. It's a pretty slick system.
So if you go to the back, when we take the break, make it time to do it.
Like what's. What's up?
Time.
Yeah, exactly.
Something. Yeah, we don't want to be. We just finished.
You need to get going. We can go.
So, under the part she was switching about it. Where it does variety. Yeah. Yeah. Was the recent one that.
What else are you gonna do?
Because it was either, sure, was there initial valuation? I don't know, just. Yeah, it was like, they will not want to do area listings. Well, that's what they were building out of the CCS. Yeah. Yeah. So things like, yeah, but I think the methodology. That's the whole part. I'm not sure if I'm doing it.
That's the one that's.
Everything's okay in here?
I'd be really surprised if they're hearing that. I'm scared when she comes back in Germany. Yeah.
Oh,
But I think that's one of the things we're gonna do in this room, because we're not in a specific subject, because we didn't know. We're gonna start with. What did you take? I don't know, would you like to see? Transition from.
Yeah, well, that's what we want.
Finding it.
Yeah, that's what we want.
Idea collection, but actually, that's, I think that's perfect. This happened about.
You got the
years ago.
Well, it's 20 there or something.
My first trip to Long Beach, I was working for the short power standardization workshop in California. Eventually.
Yeah.
I'll show you how to do the request.
In this, the joint forces, standardization. Go through this one. That's very close to that. Mentally.
Last time we got this guy.
That's not amazing. I'm thinking this is going to say. Yeah, I mean, that's just like. Well, that's exactly why we put this together.
Although I don't even think I would have been prepared in the tree room. I didn't realize like you needed
Yeah.
4 different reads, but it's fine. Do you need to do anything?
If you'd like to join us, you're welcome to.
All right, I mean, I should just, can I just join from my computer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that way you can join one of these 5. We actually have
Good.
different breakout rooms that you
And
can
then,
see.
and then is the thought to come together
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
All right, thanks for everybody who's joined online. Please direct your, you'll have to actually leave the room and join one of these other virtual meetings. You'll click on the Join Meeting Now button, which is in the meeting chat, and that will get you to the topic that you're most interested in discussing. So click on the Join the Meeting Now, and just for your reference, you'll also be directed to a Miro board that you can join as well. So for the next, until 3 p.m. Pacific time, we will be in these breakout rooms. Thank you. All right, well, so what we're going to do next is we're going to have each breakout room provide a short update. So for breakout room 1, we had Kirk. Is Kirk there?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I am here. So our group was looking at kind of operators and use cases, and we had a kind of a good discussion on kind of megawatt, like charging sizes and requirements. A lot of it focused on kind of the ferry industry from a use case perspective that seemed like a understandable and accessible kind of beachhead market for a lot of these kind of smaller megawatt requirements, especially with well understood operating profiles. However, there's still tremendous complication in deploying and understanding the needs and demands of the vessels that need to be charged, just based on the size of the ferry and where the routes are. And even within that kind of presumably well understood shipping routes and transport mechanisms, it's still a lot of details that need to be ironed out for use cases to really be demonstrated. And kind of from our discussion, just having utilities and operators and ports all collaborating with kind of single intention of, okay, if we're going to electrify this port or this ferry operation, ensuring that all the technical aspects are discussed and planned in advance, seem to be the best approach for getting any use case or a pilot project launched and going. And that was our discussion.
Okay, great, thank you. So next we had safety, and I believe that was Eileen.
I think she's pointing at myself. We had some good discussion on this topic. We were able to cover a few of the questions that we had. I think looking at them, really the best input was on the concerns regarding the connection, and it fell around operator and safety ergonomics. The interoperability or standard across vessels was important for the group as well, because as much as you can plan for it, it seemed like just getting equidistance from the ship to the connection was important because of cable lengths, safety protocols, so that the systems talk to each other the right way to protect the operator if there was a issue with the equipment. Anything else that kind of jumped out to you guys?
I think that covers it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a good early discussion. We didn't get all the questions covered, but definitely a good discussion.
Fantastic, thank you guys. For breakout room 3, we had connection and communication. And James, I think that was you.
No, it was my group. James is coming.
Sorry.
At the end. It's all right.
I'd like to hear that.
Yeah. So for connection and communication, as we were talking about, really the previous group was more about like the vessel side technical, and this is more the shore side technical discussions. And the comments that were made were that there's been a lot of work already in the infrastructure development, so charger development for MCS and electrification, but less on a standard solution on the vessel side. And so
the real work that needs to happen is the demand from the vessel builder, operator, to really ask for this single standard, request that it be made, rather than come up with a proprietary solution for every vessel that gets introduced. Because one thing that did come out or was mentioned a lot was the lowest and simplest cost, lowest cost and simplest solution is the one that they want. And so sometimes maybe that is a different connector, for now at least, you know. But as MCS gets more and more standardized and more off the shelf, maybe that will become the lowest cost and simplest solution. But for now, maybe people tend to pick something else because that's what they know, and the MCS solution might be the more expensive one currently. And we also talked about the communications protocol, and specifically the fact that the bus communications is the current one, and we know with MCS it needs to be Ethernet variant 10 base T1, and that's a new type of communications that needs to be implemented, and the vessels need to, or the ships need to update their systems to be able to communicate using the Ethernet connection. And then one thing we touched on as well was the multiple batteries or multiple connections to allow for these quick turnarounds or the larger batteries, and that there are some ships today that already have multiple connections, but it's mainly for redundancy. So if one doesn't work, then you have a second.
Did we lose Jeremy?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that Jeremy is frozen right now. So we'll move on then to Cheshta, who is with Regulatory Government and Policy.
Yes, joining virtually. Great discussion. We didn't get through all the questions, but that's hopefully okay. What would we like to see as a goal of this subgroup? One thing that was really awesome was like drafting actionable goals. And how we get there is by understanding like the gaps that exist in the industry. You know, there was a discussion around a lot of things are happening, you know, piecemeal away from each other. So like understanding the gaps and like connecting those dots and getting a complete picture would help help in that perspective. You know, once we can identify gaps, we can get a better understanding of where like policies or regulations or government can come in and like, you know, help accelerate the adoption of the ruggedized MCS. And that was also one of the goals of the group, is like helping with strategies or mechanisms to promote the adoption. One of the really interesting and awesome discussion point here was, you know, what could be some of the deliverables or outcomes? First, by understanding these gaps in the marine charging infrastructure space, it gives us an idea of like what can be done in terms of infrastructure, which then feeds into what can be done in terms of emission reduction strategies or goals. So maybe starting with an assessment report, which highlights a lot of this, which would create a discussion between the industry and the agencies. And, you know, that could be in form of a workshop. The assessment report could be like a white paper, which is published online. And at the end of all of this discussion, it would be great to produce an MOU, which very nicely, MOU or a statement or a commitment letter that really highlights what different agencies can do in terms of either incentives or policies, or putting out emission reduction targets or infrastructure deployment targets or electrification targets, which can be signed by different agencies, and that way make, you know, actionable impact. That's it.
Thanks so much, Cheshta. Jeremy, are you back online? Was there anything else you wanted to?
We are back online, but no, and nothing else to add.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And then finally, Galen is going to give us an update from the in-person group, breakout room 5.
Just speaking to that thing.
Yes.
So we had an in-person group here that we didn't have the luxury of a specific subject. So we took the opportunity to sort of reflect a little bit on what we learned this morning and even what we've done in the past, and use that as a jumping off point to look in the future, how to have this conversation, who to have it with. So we came up with a few topics, not necessarily priorities, but important things that sort of stood out. I won't go through those specifically. They'll be captured in the report. But what's more interesting, or what's as interesting, is conversation about who should be involved. And really, for each one of these topics, there is a specific set of stakeholders that's probably very critical to have in the, who might not be in this room, or we might not have even thought to have in this room, but really need to be part of that conversation in order to either accelerate or do anything effective at all. So on each of the things that we came up with, we identified, had a little brainstorm about each of those. But also interesting is, after we have each of the subject matters and have a list of who should be involved, is what's the best way to collect this information? How do we engage people? Because it's always a struggle to, when you get groups together, to elicit the right information and make best use of everybody's time. So a few things to think about as we move forward is, one, what other conversations are going on out there? How can we jump into the stream of existing conversations, talk to the people that are convening those groups, use those resources to not recreate the wheel, but also collect the expertise that's already out there. I'm paraphrasing a lot from this, but then also there's an opportunity to create a database of what do we already know, so that if people need to get up to speed, they can go and look at what's come before and kind of keep and maintain an easy access to information. And then in the process of that, also deliberately reach out to either folks that have experience with this and all that, and have them contribute to that database. And finally, building on that, what kind of proactive outreach do we need to do in order to get the right people into the right conversation? So in addition to having these meetings, have an element of this that's creating the archive and creating the information, but also, very deliberately trying to bring people in. So
thank you so much, Galen. That's a great summary. All right. So then the final breakout room we had was for financial and business. And this is you, James. Sorry. The other J name.
Right. Thank you, Erica. So in the financial and business breakout group, we got through 3 of our questions out of the 10 or so we have listed. But we started out with, what are the goals that we should seek for this subgroup? First one was defining the guardrails between the financial and business case subgroup versus the policy subgroup, since regulation and incentives kind of live in both spheres. Next up, we're more of trying to seed investment, which would be defining the benefits and outcomes that could be obtained through this standardization effort. Also defining better the ROI opportunities for the vessel operators that are going to deploy these zero emission assets. And then helping to just build up the MOU effort, like was described earlier from one of the other breakout groups. That could be an effort that could help us build partnerships, public-private partnerships, big consortia that could get us some critical mass for investments. Next up, we looked at evaluating how this subgroup here would contribute to the market, to technology development and regulatory efforts. So really what this could do is give us an opportunity through this financial working group is bundle committed adopters and early off-takers to drive that investment, which then sends signals to the technology developers, to the regulatory developers, that there is interest, and that may hopefully get them to move forward with developments that support our further deployments. And then support the policy working group in building investment vehicles for public-private partnerships, or P3s. And then another one is potentially templatizing some of the aspects of deploying zero emission infrastructure and vessels. So what are their traditional benefits? That way the first movers could more easily socialize the projects, but also put that into grant applications, so we could sell these to the funding agencies. Then we looked at quickly went through some of the other stakeholders needed to best represent the industry through this task force, which everybody that's currently here and then more. Back to you, Erica. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, James. Right. So we have reached close to conclusion of this workshop for today, but we did have one more question for you on Mentimeter. And now that you've had a chance to really think about the task force and what we've discussed in all these different subgroups, what do you think should be the goals? What is the thing that we hope to have after a year or whatever this task force ends up being in terms of timeline? What is it that we hope to do with it and use to support the industry with electrification? And so it's menti.com and the code is 25404962.
Oh.
Yeah, it should be the same code. Oh, great.
Who plugged Testable? Which one of you CharIN folks plugged Testable?
We see a hand raised here in person. The testables, for those that don't know, are the testing events that CharIN hosts for interoperability between the charger and the, in this case, vessel. There's a lot of great ideas here, though.
Challenging.
Definitely range of challenge for sure.
I think you can make it, you don't need to move the vessels around. You can just make a black box with your kind of vessel protocol and the hardware, the inlet hardware that you're pretending.
Yeah.
And make the testable with that black box. It doesn't need to be the whole ship.
True.
Yeah. Well,
for logistics reasons.
Yeah.
all right. So any reflections of this, Jeremy, on these great ideas for the task force?
I hope it's not being organized in Switzerland.
A lot of what's been said there. But yeah, I definitely think developing technical specifications and first test cases to really increase the interoperability also on the vessel and charger side. Yeah, fully agree.
Perfect.
Can I point out MOU of collaborators? Is there a prior example within the light duty or trucking side of CharIN that has had an MOU that helped all of the stakeholders advance collectively?
Well, that's exactly what we try to avoid,
Okay.
which we do avoid as a nonprofit association. We do not talk about commercialization opportunities of the things that we develop. We leave that up to the individual companies to do that. So our goal is not to develop a product that will be sold at the end. It's to help everybody come together to develop the standards, the technical specifications or industry standards, so they can go off and do that themselves. We don't want a CharIN product to be the result of this in the end. We want everybody to agree what are the, let's say, minimum requirements in order for you to go off and develop these products and services yourselves.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. And I will now turn it over to Polemia for his initial reactions to the results of the breakout rooms and this results of this question here.
Well, you haven't got me running away screaming for the hills, Erica. I think this has actually been fantastic input, and I think we'll need to still try to get this into some form of formats, which will give us terms of reference. But I guess that's also the report writing, right? And no, there's just some really great ideas here, and I did have a slight panic when someone put up testable. with visions of tugboats and ferries and various container feeders moving around the planet. But no, thank you very much, everyone, for putting out these ideas and also for your engagement on the breakout groups. I'll leave the advertising for the task force to Eric and Jeremy, but thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you, Paloma. Yes, you are going to be taking this and running with it. And we encourage everyone who has not yet signed up to join the task force to do so. You can go to the website charin.global, CHARIN.global, which will have a link to the Marine Task Force sign up. We'll also circulate that to all the attendees who are here today and give you another chance to register if you haven't already. I know some people also like to join the task force just to check in and see what's going on, getting updates through email and things like that. You don't necessarily have to always be on every single call because we know that is a big commitment. But we really appreciate everybody who was able to join us today. And just a procedural note, we're going to be collecting all this information. We'll be creating a report out of the workshop today that will be distributed to all the attendees, as well as the video recording that we took. If anybody has questions or wants more information, feel free to reach out to us at northamerica@charin.global or coordination@charin.global. We'll get right back to you. Anything else that we need to discuss before we close out for today, Jeremy?
Yeah, of course. Of course, here in the room, we have Bonnie with us.
Oh, great. Bonnie's there.
Yeah, I'm here. I've got interestingly, it's never been a day quite like this. I mean, I have to be honest, I appreciate what you've all gone through to I look into there.
That's the camera.
Okay, that's the camera. But I was going to just show, especially for the people online, I was wondering if it's easy, are we sharing screen right now?
Not here. I can.
Okay, let's share screen and see if we can go to the, I was going to show you the 2-minute video for those people who were not here. I thought I had it on one of the slides. There it is, right there.
Yeah, we had.
Yeah, so let's put it on and go to slide.
Mm-hmm. Just a moment. Here, including sound.
Yeah, you want the sound on. That's always, there you go.
It was a bold idea, first conceptualized in 2001, to create one of the largest and greenest terminals in the world by combining 2 aging terminals into one. Construction started in 2011. Today, it is a reality. Long Beach Container Terminal at the Port of Long Beach is one of the world's most advanced shipping terminals with its zero-emission operation and state-of-the-art technology. Capable of handling 3.3 million TEUs annually, more than double the capacity of the 2 aging terminals it replaced. LBCT is one of the busiest container terminals in the United States. Using clean electricity to power its entire operation, today the 4,200-foot-long wharf can welcome the largest container ships in the world. To cut emissions, all the ships plug into shore power electricity while at berth. Then, using the only ship-to-shore cranes in the Americas capable of lifting 2 containers at the same time, the terminal can service 3 of the largest ships in the world at once. To quickly move the containers to the storage area, 102 automated guided transport vehicles, or AGVs, deliver them to the fully automatic stacks, where the all-electric, fully automated stacking cranes load the containers onto trucks. This highly orchestrated zero-emission operation is not only green, but also highly efficient, offloading and loading ships in less time than any other terminals on the West Coast, with trucks moving in and out of the terminal with record speed. For cargo that will be delivered via train, The intermodal rail facility has 6 semi-automated rail cranes to load and unload trains onto the largest on-dock rail facility in North America. All this using clean electricity to power these giant machines, making LVCT one of the most sustainable terminals in the world. The vision was clear from the start. Design and build a terminal like no other, a green terminal where the economy and environment thrive together, where green means productivity, jobs for our workforce, prosperity for the region, and protection of our air, water, and natural resources. The future is now at LVCT.
I wish that many of you who are online could have been here. I know that we had probably about 45 people here today that got a pretty comprehensive tour, and I welcome you all. It is very important for us not just to have standard charging systems for all the marine activities and vessels, but also for all of our cargo handling equipment, our heavy equipment, and even our light equipment. We really need a solid set of standards. We need more players to enter the space so that it could be more competitive, because I mean, with the combination of the federal and state subsidies and some of the demand that we saw from the pandemic on to now, to the potential for tariffs, you know, it's making it, you know, it's cost prohibitive for businesses like us to make this shift, which, you know, makes a lot of sense. But it's, you know, it's not an easy thing to have a conversation with my C-suite that, you know, a piece of equipment that they were paying $120 for that they now should pay $800 to $1 million for. It's a tough ROI conversation. So we really do need to figure out how to get it standardized, how to get it more competitive, how to get more players into it, how to get alternative technologies, especially for charging, like inductive technologies and robotic, hands-free robotic arms and things like that. Not just, there are many opportunities for that, and many reasons we want that. It's you know, it's safety first and foremost. The less that we have people fumbling with all of the equipment and plugging it in and doing that, the less potential for accidents. We're also concerned about with just traditional charging equipment, that being thrown onto the ground, it being broken, it being driven over. We see that a lot, even with our existing equipment. It can get red tagged for various reasons, and then we're not using it. And for efficiency purposes and aesthetic purposes, we're a new terminal. We want it all to come together. So we really rely on groups like yours to help us, you know, find the right charging scenarios, the right partners, the right solutions, because we, as you can see, have invested $2.5 billion to have what we believe is the most sophisticated, most technologically advanced, most electrified terminal in this country, in the Americas. And it is also the cleanest, because although Hamburg, Rotterdam are expecting to have shore power, they don't have it, and it's not going to get there until about 2028. So today we are truly the cleanest, greenest terminal in the world. So I'm proud to be here, and I'm more than happy to entertain any of you. We will be putting out a whole host of RFPs, and I appreciate the time you took, and I hope those of you who were here enjoyed yourselves and learned a lot, and certainly welcome and invite any of you who weren't here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie.
Yes, thank you so
Erica?
much, Bonnie. Yeah, thank you so much, Bonnie, for hosting us today. We really appreciate your time and support, and thank you so much for the beautiful tour we experienced earlier. Bonnie, we'll put your email address into the chat box as well for anyone that might want to reach out to you online. And with that, we will conclude today's workshop. Thank you so much again for everybody who made the trip here personally or joining us virtually from all over the planet. And we look forward to launching our first meetings for the Marine Task Force here shortly. So thank you guys so much.